Want to introduce you to our team tonight. That's me. I'm Pam. I'm the training manager at Arizona Ready, and I use she, her pronouns. Luis Avila, who's our state lead, will also be joining us in a little while, and as well as Bhavna Belanconda, who's a field organizer in the Tempe and Phoenix region. Also wanted to shout out our behind the scenes team. We couldn't do this without them. Christina, Shannon, Melissa, Jen, and Monica, thanks so much for your help. We're also really proud to bring you this partnership between Organizing Together 2020 and Vote Save America. It's because of the work of people like you that we're going to be able to build the progressive power and infrastructure in this country so we can win in the fall. So shout out to all of you for being here, for coming to weeks 1 and 2, and continuing learning about organizing and volunteering. And without further ado, I want to introduce our special guest, none other than Jon Lovett.
Hi.
Jon is here. Welcome, Jon. How are you?
I'm just so glad you can hear me now. I don't know what I did wrong before, but thank you for having me. Thank you for all of the work that you're doing. We're just so grateful to everybody that's been participating and doing these trainings. It's really inspiring. The number of people who have signed up is incredible. The work Organizing Together is doing is incredible. We're so grateful to everybody that's here. That's it. That was what I wanted to say. I mean, I want to play a game with somebody, but I just wanted to say that nice thing first and then hand it back to you because I saw this big paragraph about myself and I really did not want to focus on it. Just wanted to move.
We can do it. This is totally easy. I also want to let people know we're recording a mini segment of Love It or Leave It right now. And so I know you want to talk to one of our field organizers, so I'm going to hand it over to Bhavna. I'm actually going to stop sharing for a second so you can see both of them. Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
Hi, Bhavna. Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
How are you? Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I feel like we're all struggling with the fact that we see ourselves talking more than ever before. And that's just an interesting part of this year for everybody.
Truly, I know. I feel like I look at myself for half of the staff meetings I'm in, just checking myself out, and yeah, it's very distracting.
Thank you for doing this. Now, you're here for this training, and I'm going to get out of the way and let the experts and organizers lead this training about what we do around mail-in and what we do around voting remotely, canvassing remotely, and all that. You guys are doing an incredible job making sure that Arizona is ready. But we want to put one of your organizers to the test for Love It or Leave It. Bhavna, is there somebody that you think is the right person for this game? Or is it you?
It's me.
Oh, great.
I believe it's me.
I obviously, Bhavna, the perfect person to play the game. Here's how it works, Bhavna. Making sure I'm recording. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some Arizona specific organizing challenges to you. All right. And you have to tell us what you do. All right. Maybe you'll know the answer. Maybe this is what the organizing is all about. All right. Figuring out the answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's a freezing 73 degrees outside. You're walking down an unnaturally wide street when a group of tumbleweeds roll in front of you. You deftly avoid them, but you encounter an unregistered eligible voter on a street. They say they were told they're ineligible to vote by a coworker because they aren't a Cardinals fan. What do you do?
Well, you definitely got to run over there, try not to trip over those tumbleweeds, and you got to get them on the PEVL. You got to get them on the permanent early voters list immediately. So you just got to go over there, you got to talk to them, you do your thing and hope for the best. And maybe you can also convert them to a Cardinals fan in the process.
And a bonus if you can do it. All right, next question. All right, that was correct. I don't think we have a ding, but in the episode we will. Bhavna, here's the next question. Now, you're driving through to the local is it Dutch Brothers or Dutch Bros? Coffee.
Dutch Bros.
I'm sure it is.
Oh my gosh, have you never had that before?
No.
Oh my gosh, you got to come to Arizona so you can have some of that. Oh my gosh.
So you're driving through the Dutch Bros coffee, all
Okay.
right, with oven mitts on because your steering wheel was too hot to touch. You strike up a conversation with the coffee guy about the Wildcats Sun Devils rivalry when he says he's pretty sure he already got a mail-in ballot, but he's not sure. What do you do?
I would 150% just have him call. There's a number that you can call, and I believe they can check in on that status. And, you know, if it was me, I'd probably just make him do it right there and then, because you never know if they're actually going to follow up. So you got to do it right there and then. And then if not, there's no harm in just doing it a second time and making sure that you're on there.
All right, Laz, you're doing great. You know more about this than me, so you're in charge of knowing whether these answers are right anyway. Bhavna, last question. What if someone tells you that they see no reason to vote because Arizona already does not observe daylight savings time and is therefore a perfect state?
Oh man, I think I would scream internally a little bit. Take a minute to like take that all in, and then you know, honestly, I don't know what I would do because daylight savings time is kind of the worst sometimes. But hopefully we can still have a good conversation about voting.
Okay. Well, you've won the game. All right. Great job. All right. You've won for all of these organizers. And I just want to say, like, this is obviously a really tough time. I don't think any of us thought we'd be having these conversations remotely, rejiggering a massive organization amidst the most important election of our lifetimes. To add to that, a pandemic, to add to that, these incredibly necessary and inspiring protests, to add to that, this economic pain that so many people are in, all while we're not able to do the things we would normally do to be with each other a lot of the time. You know, Arizona, other places, depending on how much you're open, like, I think it's a really hard time, but what's been incredibly inspiring is to see how many people have signed up, how many people have decided they're going to put in the work. I mean, you are a force to be reckoned with, and you really have the potential to win a Senate seat, to help win Arizona in the presidential race, to win up and down the ballot, and to make an incredible difference. And this is such a big movement, and there's so many people putting in the time, and you know, that means so much. That means so much to me. It means so much to everybody working on this. So I'm so grateful, and in a dark time, knowing that people are willing to fight it's how we get out of it. So thank you all so much. Bhavna, thank you for playing. Thank you all for organizing this, and you know, I'll see you at Dutch Bros.
Have a good Mad Dash across. Bye, Jon. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Well, I don't know if we could have had a better start to our call. I can't wait to tune in to Love It or Leave It next week and hear Bhavna's national podcast debut. I didn't get a chance to ask Jon for an apology for why he didn't pick Arizona. You can all tweet at him and find out what he says is his excuse. Well, let's jump in for tonight. Before we get started, because we have some new folks here, I want to really quickly recap the first 2 weeks of our training. Think back to the first 2 weeks and tell me about something that you learned. Oops. Oh, sorry, there we go. Tell me about something that you learned so far. What has stuck out for you? What have you remembered? What have you been practicing? Let us know in the chat box. And as a reminder, you can also find the recordings of week 1 and 2 on the Crooked Media YouTube page, and the handouts are also available on the Vote Save America website. Great, I'm seeing a lot about the hard ask. Organizing is about listening to people, components of storytelling, why storytelling is important, the story of now. These are all amazing. You've all picked up some amazing organizer skills. In week 1, we talked about the campaign phases, and yes, we are still in capacity building, but we know now, like, all of these phases are really going to blur together given the situation that we're in. So you might be doing persuasion work while you're doing voter registration work. You'll be doing persuasion work all the way up and through get out the vote. So just think about these as all components of what we're going to be doing as organizers together. In week 1, we also talked about the volunteer model. We really want to notice here how we're all connected through our field organizers to campaigns, and how this model lets us be flexible and do work for the long haul and take breaks and rest when we need to, because it's still a long time till November 3rd, so we need you in it for the long haul. We also talked about relational organizing, which is just a fancy way of saying organizing people we know, people in our network. We have a really good chance to talk to these people and get them to volunteer and contribute with us. And of course, you also learned about the hard ask. You learned about asking through the yes, and you learned about asking through the no. And you also know that a hard ask isn't hard. It's just specific and unapologetic. In week 2, we talked about personal storytelling. So you learned about the story of self, us, and now with Jon Favreau, who of course brought all that real life experience with him as President Obama's speechwriter. You also learned why personal storytelling is so effective and when, where, and how to use it. So on that note, I would love to know in the chat box or in the Facebook comments again, if you've been able to practice your story. Tell us a little bit about it. When and how did you share it? If you haven't shared your personal story, don't worry, because this is the perfect opportunity to learn how to do that. Once again, if your friends are trying to stream on Facebook, it's facebook.com/ArizonaReady, and we are live on that page. Awesome. Well, if you haven't had a chance to share your story, doing voter registration work, and especially permanent early voting list or PEVL work, is a perfect way to practice and talk to voters and community members. So we are going to talk about that tonight. That's our topic, and I want you to know that in Arizona, we call it PEVL. This is an acronym that I dream, sleep, and probably whisper in my sleep about. I've talked about it so much in the last few months, and we're going to let you know all about it. But before we get into the details about PEVL, I first want to hand it off to Luis Avila, who's our state lead in Arizona, to give you the background of Arizona as a battleground state, how we got here, and give you an idea of how exactly we are going to win. Luis.
Thank you so much, Pam, and thank you everyone for joining. This is so incredible. Over 500 people in this call. The numbers continue to grow on the Facebook side. Thank you so much for inviting people. Again, my name is Luis, and I want to start with a story. In 2016, I was serving as organizing director in Nevada on the coordinated campaign, trying to win the elections for Democrats and elect Hillary Clinton. I imagine every one of you has a different memory or a memory of that night. I've been working for immigrant rights for over 20 years, and I kind of continue, by the way, the story without saying I am so excited and so thankful that our undocumented students and documented population extended the DACA. They're here to stay. Home is here, and I'm really excited that they got some relief today. I hope that you can all help me also celebrate this amazing achievement, which, by the way, doesn't come by coincidence. These students have been pushing, and these young people have been moving the fight, and it's been because of people like you who have been volunteering and making phone calls and ensuring that elections matter. And if there is an example of how elections matter, look at the Supreme Court and how one single vote can make a difference in the lives of hundreds of thousands or millions of people. That night, though, in 2016 in November, I remember very clearly that fear that probably documented folks were feeling last night invaded so many of us. I started feeling what's going to happen now that this crazy person was elected for president on that night. Many of us cried. Many of us were just thinking about what to do next. My first reaction was to give a call to my family and my friends who I knew were going to be directly impacted by policy changes from a new president, in this case, from Trump being president. And I remember that one of those calls was to my friend Armando. Armando is someone that I've been organizing with for many years. And when I called him, I was very somber. And I said, Armando, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And Armando told me something that changed my life, and it's the reason probably why I'm here in front of you today. He told me, Luis, I would tell the rest of the country, welcome to Arizona. And I said, tell me why, tell me how. And he said, Armando, remember, Luis, that we fought against Sheriff Joe Arpaio and we defeated him tonight. Remember that we fought against SB 1070 and we defeated SB 1070, the Show Me Your Papers law. Remember that they tried to prevent us from celebrating MLK Day, and we fought that one and won. Remember the many Native American communities that have risen up to protect our public lands. And he reminded me that Arizona is a place of fighters. It's a place that has fought against demons as big or small as Arpaio or Trump, and that we actually have defeated them, and that we have won. And he said, probably the rest of the country can learn something from us. Probably the rest of the country can learn that in our resilience, there's power, and in our unity, there's power, and that we will win in the next elections. So I want to start with that story, because it is that moment when he shared that story that I realized that Arizona is a microcosm of the rest of the country. The power of the movement that we have created for so long. What happened that seemed to be so insurmountable in our fight against injustice and against racism and against so many things that were happening in Arizona started to change because of individuals like you who volunteer, who made phone calls, who ensured that the families voted, and who got together and ensured the Democrats were elected for office, but that also supported local organizations to do their work. Really, that is the rationale behind our work. Organizing Together 2020 is here to do such a thing, to get started early enough to build the capacity of volunteers in states and to ensure that we are not building this power late. Think about it like this. The state in Arizona has been consistently relied by Republicans. You know, Republicans have won at all levels of government in Arizona. The state has been Republican controlled for over 2 decades, and you know, everywhere from the county to the governor. But in federal elections, we've been making progress. You know, Bill Clinton won in 1996. But more importantly, in 2018, because of the work of many partner and organizations here in the state and volunteers like you, we were actually able to elect 3 Democrats to statewide office. And this year, we have a great candidate for Senate in Mark Kelly. This is a historic opportunity to win in the Senate, but also one very important thing for all of you who are out of state. This is the first time that Democrats can take the majority of the legislature for the first time in our generation. This is huge. Imagine, we can not only ensure that there is a real leadership at the White House, that we have hopefully take control of the Senate, but that also here in the state, that we're building long-term policy and progressive power so that we can ensure that our families are in the forefront of the rights that we want to advance. We started this work since the beginning of the year in Organizing Together 2020 here in Arizona, our campaign called Arizona Ready, to build grassroots infrastructure in the state. And we have done an amazing job. We have built a volunteer network of over 3,000 people so far, not even including all of you yet. We work with our partner organizations in this state to hold people like Martha McSally accountable and ensure that we're supporting frontline workers and teachers. But we've already laid this groundwork on taking to thousands of voters and turning them into vote by mail and getting many of them signed up to ensure that their ballots arrive early and that they vote safely and that they vote informed. We have an incredibly diverse staff that represents the state with a particular focus on ensuring that we continue to grow the power of Latinx voters, Native American voters, and other communities of color. At this time, if things are called on election night, time zones, and you know, Jon was talking about how the fact that Arizona doesn't change its time zone, except in actually the northern nations where there is a place where they are moving to the Mountain Standard Time. Time zones will work in our favor in Arizona and has a chance to probably be the last state called on the battlegrounds. I say that we are the last line. We are the state that we will probably define who is the next president of the United States, what is the Senate makeup, and how our state in Arizona looks like for the future. To win, though, we have to talk to as many registered voters and ensure that they are registered to vote by mail. Yes, we will celebrate together on November 3rd when that call is made on TV and on radio and online. All of you are going to remember this moment, and you're going to remember that you helped build up power in a state that for years has been fighting against injustice and against draconian legislation. But we're not the only ones doing this work. We couldn't do this work without our amazing partners in the state. And this slide that you're going to be seeing right now, it highlights just a few of them. You know, you've heard of some of the national partners on week 1 and week 2. And this 3rd week, we want to tell you about our state and local partners. We talk a lot about, you know, shifting demographics here in Arizona, and that's true. But we also have to recognize and lift up the work that activists and the rise of political power has come because of things like SB 1070, the Show Me Your Papers law, that 10 years ago tried to push us back and try to, you know, demonize us as communities, as immigrants, as myself, an immigrant. But these laws actually catalyzed our power. What I believe is that we're seeing in the streets and we're seeing out there in our communities is how this administration has catalyzed our power, and in the years to come, it will be tougher and tougher to defeat us. Because of them, of these partners, and because of all of you, Arizona now has the power to create history by winning for our communities in November. And this is an amazing achievement for those of you who have worked so hard in the movement. So we're going to defeat the demons, as Armando said, right? We're going to thrive and build power together. And a few things why I think that this is going to happen. It's because Maricopa County, for example, the place where Phoenix is, where I live, where Phoenix is located, by the way, Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the country, is the fastest growing county in the entire country. There are tons of transplants, people from all over the state and all over the world, younger voters and growing populations like the Latino community. On top of that, over 80% of Arizonans live in Phoenix and Tucson metro areas. Yes, some of you said Bear Down, I would say Forks Up, who are heavily Democratic areas. But we also know that we have to continue turning folks out from across the state. From the Navajo Nation to the border regions in Yuma, Nogales, Agua Prieta, and other areas in the state. Well, these are great opportunities. We also know that Republicans are going to try very, very hard to prevent our communities from voting. So that is why it's so important that you do help us the work of contacting voters and providing information on the importance of voting, persuading them to ensure that they are enrolled in vote by mail and that you are participating and volunteering in our efforts. We don't want to focus a lot on math tonight, but the point of showing you this next slide is to show you that the numbers show a really good opportunity. That turnout in the 2018 elections was historic. Nearly as many people voted in the 2016 elections, presidential elections, as the field margin got even smaller in 2018. Women, young voters, voters of color participated in historic numbers this last election in 2018, showing us that 2020 could be a historic way for us. So all of this is to say that the work our communities in Arizona have been doing is quite remarkable. We like to say here in Arizona that we went from the epicenter of hate to a battleground state. Just sit with that a little bit. From the epicenter of hate to a battleground state in 10 years. As I share my story about Armando, Arizonans has been fighting for Trump-like agendas for years. That fight, led by many organizers born out of the immigrant rights movement, has allowed us to fundamentally change the balance of power, to both at the state level and at the national level. Now, we also not only have the opportunity to change who's in the White House next year, but we also have the chance to take control of the Senate with Mark Kelly, and also to take control of the state legislature. Now, I want to thank you so much for making time tonight. I know it's late in the East Coast and you're still in this call. I know that it's earlier for us in the Pacific Coast and are here in Arizona or in Mountain Time, and that you're still here. Let's make sure that we learn tonight how to make this historic change happen. Thank you so much for your time, and back to you, Pam.
Thank you so much, Luis. I love hearing you tell that story. And I love hearing about how much Arizona has changed in the last decade, because it's a testament to the power of organizing, and it's a testament to the power of volunteering. And that's why you all are here, so you can hear about the real results that have been made in a state like Arizona for the last 10 years because of people on the ground doing the work just like you were going to do. You're ready to build that people power with us, and we couldn't be more grateful. The message I really want to drive home today and for every day until the election and beyond is that we can't leave any votes on the table. Like we said, we have to turn out voters all the way from the Navajo Nation down to the border communities, and we can't take it for granted that anyone will vote or assume that people we think are going to vote are going to turn out, especially now. There's a lot of complications happening. But to do this, we will focus on 3 key tactics, which is increasing access to voting, expanding the electorate, and also turning out infrequent voters. Well, guess what? PEVL helps us accomplish on all 3 of those goals. I also just want to point out that we still have a primary election to go here in Arizona. On August 4th, we have our state primary. The deadline to register to vote for that election is just a couple of weeks away, and voters can still get on the PEVL all the way until July 24th. But why I want to point that out to you is that any work you do now on voter registration or PEVL you're going to get double impact from. You're going to get people into the habit of voting earlier. You're going to get them on the permanent early voter list. And we're going to know if they turned out for the primary that they'll be a likelier voter come the fall. And this all goes back to what we were talking about in terms of building infrastructure. The more voters we get on PEVL now, especially those people who are likely to vote for Democratic causes and candidates this fall, it frees up time for us and resources later down the road as we get closer and closer to the election to target and persuade less likely voters. And again, we don't know what a campaign is going to look like. We didn't know what it was going to look like a few months ago. It's still confusing every day to figure out how exactly to do this. The more work we can do now from afar online, it's going to help us out later on down the road. Well, I have to say that there are things that bring me joy that I get in the mail, like my coffee subscription or a letter from my niece or getting my voter guide and ballot in the mail. I would love to hear in the chat box or in the comments on Facebook, what do you love to send and receive? Just keep it conference call appropriate, because I think you'll see that getting your ballot in the mail is one of the best feelings that you can have as a person, and also as you can help people to access their power and get that ballot early so they have time and it's convenient and safe for them to vote. Care packages, letters, subscription boxes, refund money. I love that one. Postcards and real letters. Yes, I love a handwritten note, a handwritten letter. I see an Oregonian there, fully vote by mail state. Yes, support our USPS workers. So I hope you'll think about getting your ballot in the same light as you think about your subscription boxes or your package from Etsy or a birthday card or a letter, and think about PEVL in the same way. So let's talk a little bit about what PEVL really is. The Arizona Permanent Early Voter List is our state's vote by mail program. You will hear vote by mail called something different in many, many states. It can be absentee voting, permanent absentee voting, no excuse voting, but in Arizona, it's PEVL. That's what we call it. Again, you'll be dreaming about PEVL soon enough. This allows people to submit a request to get their ballot sent to their home and return it from home. Drop it off at a designated location like a drop box, an early voting center, or even a polling place if they want to. We're going to reach all the way back to week 1 and think about why people say yes to volunteering, because the same concepts apply here. People register to vote and register to vote by mail because they can. They're eligible, they have the time, they know how, they understand how to do it. They also do it because they want to. They're interested in elections. They care about their community and their neighbors and the issues, and they want to defeat Donald Trump, and they believe in voting and civic engagement. People also do it because they're asked to, like Moira says. A volunteer lets them know, or a friend lets them know how important voting by mail is and walks them through it and gives them the support, especially if voting by mail is something new or different. So week after week, just keep in mind you're building on all these skills and knowledge on how to help make this happen. If you combine this with your relational organizing skills, your hard ask skills, and your personal storytelling skills, that is a really powerful combination. Let's talk for a minute about why PEVL is so important, especially this year. We've talked a little bit about it already, but we know voting is going to look different due to COVID-19 than it has in the past, but we don't know exactly how it's going to look different. So we know that no matter what, PEVL helps keep both people and their votes safe. We really, really believe that no one should have to jeopardize their safety in order to participate in our democracy and cast their ballot. 2/3 of Americans already expect that COVID-19 will disrupt voting in November in some way, shape, or form. We also know that voting by mail is one of the most efficient and cost-effective ways to conduct elections, all the while expanding access to voting in our communities. Some of our friends from our all vote by mail states can attest to that. We see some of the highest turnout in those states and virtually no issues with voting by mail. Voting by mail also makes voting more accessible in so many ways. You have more time to vote. You're not rushing to get to a polling place between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. on election day. You can do research. You can read voter guides. You can have access. You might have limited access to polling locations. Maybe you have to take time off work to go vote, or you have to take public transportation to get there. The list really goes on, and PEVL helps us solve each of those situations. And we also know, despite rumors to the contrary, that voting by mail works and it's safe and secure. It has always been used for our overseas military personnel. And of course, even the president votes by mail, and even though he doesn't seem to want to let other people do that. Funny how that works. In addition, PEVL also makes life easier, and I don't know about you, but I'll take anything that makes my life easier these days. Any registered voter in Arizona can request to be added to PEVL, or if they're registering for the first time, they can request to be added to PEVL there too. Voters who are on PEVL will automatically receive a ballot in the mail for each and every election they're eligible to participate in about 27 days before election day, give or take mail delivery. That includes federal elections, state elections, local elections, special elections. You never have to worry that you're not going to be able to vote in anything that you're eligible for, because that ballot is going to come straight to you. In addition, I think a lot of us have been buying stamps these days, but honestly, before that, I wasn't a person who had a lot of stamps lying around. PEVL ballots come with a postage-paid return envelope that is also pre-addressed. And so while we love to support our postal workers and the USPS, this is a aspect of PEVL that really addresses accessibility. People don't have to worry about finding a stamp or paying for postage to return their ballot. Okay, we've gone over the what, we've gone over why, and we've gone over how it makes life easier, but I think this is the most important. This is why we're all here. How does it help us win? This is what we're all here for to do in November. When you talk to voters about PEVL and when you get them on PEVL, you are reaching voters who probably would support Democratic causes and candidates, but they don't always turn out for elections. They're not showing up each and every time to an election, maybe because of one of the reasons we talked about above. Maybe their kid got sick, maybe they had an extra shift at work. For whatever reason, showing up on election day is hard, and it doesn't happen every single time. PEVL is a great insurance policy for anything unforeseen that might come up. We live in a weird time now where a lot of us are working from home, but on a normal Tuesday, you might be shuttling to and from work, you might be commuting, you might have to take your kid to soccer practice. There's a lot of things that could come up in the course of a day that PEVL helps us resolve. These also might be voters who don't go to the polls because of a concern about safety. And again, we don't know what voting is going to look like in the fall. We've seen cases of COVID-19 on the rise in Arizona and in other states, and some governors and mayors issuing new orders to try to help keep us safe. But it's not adopted by everyone in every state and every city. So we don't know what voting is going to look like, and voting by mail could be the key to make sure people's access to voting remains safe and secure, as well as themselves. PEVL also helps us reach voters from groups and constituencies and communities who we need to turn out this November. And it gives us a longer time to contact them and connect with them and persuade them with our personal stories, which we practiced last week. All right, now we know all of the background, let's get down to tactics. Luckily, the state of Arizona has made it really easy for voters to sign up for PEVL. We are not going to go into too many of the details about the form here tonight, because anytime you do this work with one of our partners, they are going to give you an in-depth training and give you the specifics about everything you'll need to do that work. But the very easiest way, the easiest way to do this is to sign up for PEVL online. What this is essentially is you go to the Secretary of State's website and you refill out the voter registration form online, and you check the box to be added to PEVL at the end of that form. A voter can also print or get a printed version of that form and complete it and sign it, and then mail it in, and they can also simply take a picture of it with their phone and email it to their county recorder. And if someone doesn't have a printer or even internet access, they can literally just write down the required fields on a blank piece of paper. They can sign that piece of paper and again, mail it, scan it and email it, or take that photo and send it in. So here are the 3 ways that you can sign up for PEVL. And next we're gonna go into talking about PEVL. How do we talk to voters about it? And for this section, Bhavna is gonna come back and help me out because she's an amazing field organizer who is connected with so many volunteers and voters about PEVL. And I'd love for her to share some ideas with us. Bhavna, are you with us?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So here's a way to frame PEVL with a voter. Number 1, that it's easy, safe, and convenient. What would you say to a voter about that message?
I always tell voters, especially right now, the PEVL is like a security net. During times like this with COVID, it just ensures that you have the opportunity to vote safely. And I know that now some counties in Arizona are even willing to send you the I voted sticker, which is an added bonus. I love a good sticker, so that's always a good incentive.
I love a good sticker too. I can't pass it up. It is county by county, but call your county recorder and make sure that they send stickers with your ballot. What about this idea for number 2, that PEVL is a voting insurance policy? How would you talk to a voter about that?
All right, so this one, I usually say that, even without COVID, a typical Tuesday could just become stressful. You never know what life is gonna throw at you. What if your car breaks down, or you have an unexpected situation come up at work, or your kid has a fever? You just never know. So with PEVL, you know that no matter what, you still have that option to get your vote in.
I love it. Stressful Tuesdays, they're a thing. Number 3, I love this one because I'm a huge nerd, but there's a lot sometimes on your ballot to consider. So what would you say to a voter about PEVL giving you more time to consider your ballot?
Well, definitely, like you said, extra time. Something that I like to do when I have this time to look over my ballot is have a ballot party, get together with some friends, and we'll research the different issues that are on the ballot, the different candidates, and go over any confusion that we may have. Obviously, that might look a little different this year, but hopefully we're still having those really great conversations with our peers and our community members.
Yeah, now that we've figured out Zoom, we can do it on Zoom, but we just figured it out today. So, okay, number 4, we know PEVL is really popular in Arizona. So can we tap into some FOMO, make sure people are signing up and doing it because their friends are doing it? What would you say to somebody about everyone else is doing it, or if they say, I'm already on PEVL?
Well, like you said, on the slide, nearly 80% of Arizonans are early voters. So we are getting there, and it is working, but PEVL really just makes sure that we are getting those voters who are maybe on the fence about voting or undecided. It's like that security net, as I said earlier, that just ensures that they get that extra push. And that is what we need to help make a change this election cycle. So also this ties in very closely with number 6, so I'll pass it back over to you for that one.
Awesome. Yeah, I think when I talk about PEVL as a voting superpower, I want to talk to voters who want to do more, right? They want to help. They want to figure out how to contribute. This is a great way to contribute because it helps us run better campaigns. It helps us run better elections. Anytime we get a voter onto PEVL, 1, we have an entire month to talk to them about that ballot. And when they turn in that ballot, they don't get any more phone calls from us, and they don't get any more door knocks from us. And I find this a really persuasive talking point when you're talking to people on the doors. Say like, hey, once you turn in that ballot, it'll be peace and quiet for you. But this helps us beat Donald Trump's agenda because we know who we need to target. By getting more people on the PEVL, we have more time to reach out to them, connect with them. And we also know when they've received their ballot, and we can follow up with them and make a plan with them to vote for Election Day. All right, I think above all, and what I really want to drive home, the advice I really want and I think our goddess role model, imaginary BFF, Leslie Knope, would give us is to be persistent. If someone says no to PEVL, use your hard ask skills and try again using a different tactic or message from the slide that we showed you earlier. You might hear someone say, I'm already registered to vote, or even I already vote by mail. But because we're all learning these amazing organizing skills, we're going to follow up with questions like, well, are you registered at your current address? Have you moved since the last time you registered? Are you a permanent vote by mail voter, or did you just vote by mail once? Let's check just to be sure, or let's fill out that form again just to be sure. There's no harm in doing this. One of the huge benefits of early voting is that we get to treat the entire month before an election like election day. That gives us time to call people, connect with them, use those organizing skills of listening to people and figuring out what matters to them and what's important to their lives. And then also telling them how the candidates or causes on the ballot will help improve their lives. And every vote that you bank early, it makes your Get Out the Vote program that much more efficient and optimized and targeted. So going back to Happy Mail, and this is for both the cat and the dog people out there, now, since all of you know how easy, important, and impactful voting by mail is, I hope the first action you all will take is, if you are not a permanent vote by mail voter, you will go find out your state or county's information right when you hop off this call and sign up for the permanent early voting list that applies to you in your state or county. And you know why it's important now. So even when you talk to voters, you can say, yeah, I was confused too, or I didn't know how important it was, and now I know, and you can tell that as part of your personal story. We have reached the end, but we still have some big things coming up. We would love to invite all of you to our Arizona Ready Volunteer Convention this Saturday at 11 a.m. Bhavna will be dropping the links to each of these items in the chat as we go through them. Guess what? We're going to celebrate some amazing successes that we've had over the last several months. We're also going to welcome some special guests, Secretary Julian Castro and Tucson Mayor Regina Romero, and more will be joining us this Saturday. You can join us for the convention at that link below. Make sure you are signed up for next week's Adopt a State training. It's our final one. We are going to be telling you exactly how you can bring your unique skills and your background to organizing work, how to take the next step and volunteer, and how you can have the biggest impact possible going into the general election. We are going to be back with all 5 other states to wrap up with our finale, and we're going to be joined by special guest Dan Pfeiffer next week. I'm super excited for that one. And I think a lot of you have done this, but just want to point out that you don't have to wait to get started volunteering. On the Vote Save America Arizona page, there are a ton of virtual events to jump into right now. Anytime you join an online event, you'll get a quick training, and organizers will be there to support you as well. That's all we've got for you tonight. I want to thank everyone for joining and commenting. Thanks everyone on Facebook for joining us and watching the live stream there. We'll see you next week. Thanks everyone.